Welcome back to the 99, where we are focused on brewing a better competitive commander. I'm your host, Patrick Marath, and we are back discussing an old favorite of mine, and mostly because the companion mechanic got shat all over. We're talking about Marath, Will of the Wild. Now, if you're familiar with my previous build, Zerta Will of the Wild, well, that list still performs, as it should, just a lot slower, and functionally speaking, it's not the build I would suggest you go for anymore. As a matter of fact, I would say that this is the ideal build, the better version of Marath that we've all been waiting for. And in case you don't know who Marath is, he should be on the screen now, but Marath, Will of the Wild, is Nyan. So red, green, white for a legendary creature, elemental beast, 0/0 body. Why would you ever play this? You should. Marath Will of the Wild enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. So commander tax adds to that, so on and so forth. It just gets bigger. Well, the important part here is X, remove X, +1/+1 counters from Marath. This has been eroded to make it so that you have to spend mana on this ability. You can't say X is 0. Just FYI. You can put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, or Marath deals X damage to target creature or player, or put an XX green elemental creature token onto the battlefield. The goal for many a combo player here has been to leverage Marath's activated ability to damage out the board. That second effect you can choose, and up until this point there hadn't been enough support cards, redundancies, to get the ball rolling on this strategy. But ever since Cryptic Trilobite was announced, I got it in my head that this could just be tier 0, tier 1, play amongst the best. No, I don't believe in tiers. 2, it's all about player skill, and the game has only made it that much easier for Marath to succeed. And again, this is definitely the build you want to go for now. So to all those fans of the show who've been reaching out to me asking, will there be a revised version since Companion, again, pooped all over? Well, yes, this is the version I highly recommend. And for you guys specifically, there are just going to be a handful of cards you're going to have to replace. I say handful, but a good amount of cards you're going to have to replace. And on that note, before we jump into this video, guys, if you want to help support the channel indirectly, the best way to do so is via the link in the description at TCG Player. If you're looking to update your Marath Will of the Wild list and or just add to your own Marath build, do so by using the link in the description, and you'll be supporting the channel with a portion of those proceeds. So thank you very much. Also, if you want to help support the channel directly, you can do so via Anchor, the station you are listening to this on, and or Patreon. And as my Patreon members know, at the end of this video, I'll be thanking all of you leading up to 99. Then who knows what the hell I'll be doing. I've actually gotten so accustomed to saying your names at the end of this video, I kind of just enjoy it. So we'll see if we just make that a thing. And these videos will go much longer than they have to. But all those notes set aside, let's jump into this list. You guys have a basic understanding of how Marath works, how Marath functions, what you want to be doing, but the game plan has changed. I'll say that goldfishing this list, with and without protection, I can generate a turn 3 or 4 win pretty commonly. So that's like the net average. 3, 4, at latest 5, 6. But generally 3 or 4 wins, turn 3 or 4 wins. So that's pretty quick by commander standards. I mean, cEDH is known for being a turn 3 format, so we passed that benchmark. But what I highly advise is you take your turns to ramp, draw, and tutor for the proper solutions, getting the board state set up to where there can be no failure. So having the Grand Abolisher out, having the Archon of Valor's Reach out, having the Conqueror's Flail, equipped to your Birds of Paradise, having those elements set up for our friend Marath to really get the ball rolling. Now, the list itself, if you want to follow along, you can follow along over on Moxfield. There's also a written primer over there, which I'll be following along with. So if you see me looking off camera right, then you'll see me looking at my screen. Also note, for this, I'm going to just discuss the cards that I've featured here in this breakdown. However, this list can modify and likely will in the future. So if this video isn't accurate to the list you see down the line, well, that's because relevant cards came out. But let's discuss one of those 3 elements, starting with ramp. The cards you're going to be looking to play for and or keep a starting hand with. Now, there are 3 main combos in this list that you're going to drive towards. However, it's all dictated by your starting hand. So if you have one of said combo pieces in your hand, which we'll talk about near the end of this video, that is the combo you should be playing for. However, this deck is very good at pivoting towards any other combo because they're layered on top of each other. Many of them help the other combo line out. But so far as getting there, our combos are very mana efficient, but we do want ramp to get the ball rolling. And our best odds of getting the ball rolling are Bloom Tender and Fabro Elder. You likely know what they do. They're on the screen now, but they both have a similar effect. Bloom Tender is 1 generic and 1 green, while Fabro Elder is 1 generic, 1 green, and 1 white. One is a 1/1 body, one is a 0/0 body. The only important piece of text here is tap. For each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. Why this effect is important? Well, Marath is not always the priority cast in this list. It's generally not the card you're aiming to play out because there are other cards in the 99 that are usually better to play for. However, if you can cast Bloom Tender or Fabro Elder on turn 2, your next choice should be casting Marath to set up the toolbox, right? To get Marath out, to ping all those dorks, to ping all those 1 defense bodies, destroy them, and or allocate your +1/+1 counters to other things. If you have Hardened Scales out, buff Marath, you get the idea. General Marath stuff. But when you cast Marath, you have 3 mana automatically with both these creatures. Generally speaking, that is how you're going to get the each color among permanents you control with Marath on the field, because we don't have that many permanents that fulfill that mark otherwise. 50% of this list is green, so it is very difficult to hit that otherwise. Luckily, Marath is only 3 CMC, so that is a great way to accelerate your game. On turn 3, you effectively have, if you turn 2'd one of these creatures, you have another dork, so you have 3 lands at most with a dork, and that's 7 mana. That's enough to start comboing off on the next turn. So obviously these are very good. They're going to be your best friends when going to combo off. The next card we want to talk about is a staple. It came out, we discussed this in a review on the channel, and I think it was with Ernesto. It was immediately obvious that this is one of the best red cards ever made. Dockside Extortionist, specifically for Commander. Dockside Extortionist is 1 generic, 1 red for a 1/2 body, creature, goblin, pirate. When Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens where X is the number of artifacts or enchantments your opponents control and enchantments. You get both. You get a lot. You get a lot of mana. So this is a combo card. It's a basic ramp card. In this list, it's both of those things. It's not a card you need to keep in your, if your opening hand has this, don't jump for joy. It's only good dependent on the board state. So you'll know when you need to pull Dockside Extortionist. But if it's going to bump your mana up by 5 treasures, this is a great way to get the ball rolling and accelerate into our game plan. I think I said the ball rolling twice. I'm thinking of Walking Ballista when I say the ball rolling because Walking Ballista is in this list. Essentially, though, Dockside Extortionist, if you can make 4 or more treasure tokens, yeah, play for Dockside Extortionist. He's a good card. The last piece of ramp I want to discuss is one I don't often play and or advocate for. However, the game of cEDH is becoming more creature dependent. So, along with that, we do see a lot of elves. And Priest of Titania, boy, she just loves the elves. Let me tell you. And not just the ones you play. So for 1 generic and 1 green, creature, elf, druid, 1/1 body, tap, add 1 green to your mana pool for each elf on the battlefield. There are obvious benefits here. 50% again of our list is green, so half of your deck you're going to be playing very easily with this card. She can just run away with a game. It's almost like having Guy's Cradle, but better. Better. Honestly, better. In the instances where this can tap. So with Marath, you make tokens, you can make bodies to make Guy's Cradle really good, right? You do have to work for that, though. The fact that I benefit off the elves my opponents are playing is huge. I've seen Priest get up to 5-6 mana a tap. It's absurd. When you can use Priest of Titania to do a natural order or a Court of Calling all by itself, then you know Priest was well worth it. It's crazy to me how valuable this card is, but it's very potent here because we do have access to a lot of elves. You know, Avacyn's Pilgrim's in this list. There's just, we're not even using all the elves. Like Boreal Druid was recently cut from this. However, I am seeing a lot of dorks out there these days, and all dorks are elves, essentially. So play Priest. Trust me. I wouldn't normally advocate for it, but play Priest. Now, the draw elements I want to discuss, these are ones that you don't typically see in list unless they are beneficial for that list. And the one that I think is critically undervalued in cEDH is Orin Frostfang. I think people are swayed away from it because it's 5 CMC. And that seems like a lot. It is. But for 3 generic and double green, snow creature snake, 2/6 body. Oh, Imperial Recruiter? Yes, please. Attacking creatures you control have death touch. So let's just sit on that first ability for a second. When you attack with, let's say, I don't know, an elf, one of our dorks, Priest of Titania, and Marath, they get death touch. So not only are you threatening to remove any creature your opponents may have that are capable of blocking, Marath at this point is able to shoot those creatures and kill them because death touch works on Marath's activated ability. So if you were to damage them with Marath prior to the declare blocker step, you just go straight through to your opponent. So Orin Frostfang and Marath, they're best friends. You didn't know it, but Elemental Beast and Snakes, they get along with each other. Now here's the important part. Whenever a creature you control deals damage, combat damage rather, to a player, draw a card. If it just said damage. Whew. If it just said damage. Okay, so I think the most I've ever drawn off of this was like 5 cards. I mean, that's pretty good, right? I mean, I think that's pretty good in my book. 5 mana, draw 5. Would you play that? I would definitely play that. Oh, wait, and it's on a 2/6 body. Anytime a creature can do the thing that you really want, like drawing cards, play that. Mind you, we have 28 creatures in this list, let alone Marath, let alone the tokens you can make with Marath. And again, Marath's ability is instant speed, so you can do those, make those tokens off turn, Court of Calling into an Orin Frostfang, attack with like 2 or 3 things. It's almost like having Timna the Weaver in your list, but without the downsides of losing life. She gains life, but this is a better Timna. This is a better Timna. If you think Timna the Weaver is good, just try Orin Frostfang. When you make that one swing, even if Frostfang doesn't stick, because generally speaking, folks will target this. They see you draw gobs of cards, and they don't want it anymore. However, net the draws when you can. It's highly valuable in this list. And any list that can leverage it, but Marath really loves it. Speaking of a card that Marath specifically loves, Generous Patron. So for 2 generic, 1 green, creature elf advisor. Ooh, there's another elf. Awesome art, by the way. Battlebond had some really good art. I think this is Battlebond. Yeah. So 1/4 body. When Generous Patron enters the battlefield, support 2. So if you don't know what support is, it allows you to put a 1/1 counter on each of up to, in this instance, 2 target creatures. So, okay, I can put a 1/1 counter on Marath. That's cool, I guess. I can put a 1/1 counter on my opponent's creature. Why? Whenever you put one or more counters on a creature you don't control, they don't have to be +1/+1 counters, but those are the only ones we're leveraging in this particular list. You draw a card. So anytime Marath gives an opponent creature a +1/+1 counter, you draw a card. This feels weird, right? This feels like a bad thing to do. In all honesty, you, the Marath player in Naya, generally aren't the target of much creature hate. You're not going to be swung at because you are not using life as a resource. You're not on Treasonous Ogre, or at least you shouldn't be. I mean, you could be, but you shouldn't be. There's no reason for that, so no one's going to target you for that, unless they just don't like you and they want to see you off the board, right? And then you've got other problems. However, For the most part, Generous Patron, it's a 1/4 body, so it's always going to be able to block the inevitable 2/2 elf you just created and on your opponent's side. But secondly, it's going to let you draw off of any of your top deck tutors. So you Worldly Tutor, you desperately want that Conclave Mentor, will just push a 1/1 counter onto an opponent's creature and draw that card. And you can do this instantaneously too, right? So it's not on your turn, it's not specifically timed, you just get the draw. So if there was a board wipe like about to happen and you had the mana sufficient to just move Marath counters around, go ahead and net some draws really quick before your board gets wiped. There's so many benefits to Generous Patron, and it's very easily playable because of the 2 generic. I highly recommend you use this card. It's one of the better draw engines in this list. And again, giving your opponents more damage to push on other players is usually a good thing. Plus, we have so many bodies, you're not the person that's going to get attacked into, trust me. And if you are, again, talk to your group, see what's up. I don't know why they're targeting you playing Marath. The next card I want to discuss is an oldie and a goodie, and one of the cards I seek to leverage more because it's just so damn good. Skull Clamp. 1 generic, 1 equipped cost, 2 total. Equipped creature gets +1, -1. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. So I'm going to say 70% of the time, this is the card that Stoneforge Mystic and Steel Shaper's Gift will grab. Now, my general policy on tutors in any list is that you'll have 1 tutor and at least 2 targets. So outside of this, you have Conqueror's Flail. And that's vital because it shuts off your opponents from being able to cast spells. And because all of our combo lines are mana efficient, we can easily set that up and have it equipped and continue with a combo line, right? But that's only 30% of the time because I was about to give you the bird, guys. Because Skull Clamp is what you really want. There are going to be points because you're playing with such speed, with such haste. You have all this ramp. You're just able to pour things out of your hand that you're going to be deficient. But again, my general policy is to have at least 2 targets for a tutor. You'll notice that there are 2 tutors for 2 targets in this list. I generally don't do that, but Skull Clamp is just that valuable because you're able to sacrifice any one of the tokens you make off of Marath. Any creature that's just lost its value at that point in time. If you don't need Imperial Recruiter anymore, or you have a Hewitt in your hand and you want to recast Imperial Recruiter, just go ahead and Skull Clamp the Imperial Recruiter. Skull Clamp the Rex Sage. Any body with 1 defense in your list that is just sitting on the field now, go ahead and Skull Clamp it because that's draw 2. And again, same story here. We have so many top deck tutors. This is a great way to grab them. This is like my second favorite artifact to do that with outside of Sensei's Dividing Top. I mean, that's easily the best of just getting the thing because you don't need to sacrifice anything. But in this list, again, Skull Clamp, Marath, best friends. These are the ones that synergize well with the list. These are the ones you should be aiming for and be playing for because they're very good. Especially because we have such a redundancy of getting additional +1/+1 counters, like the hardened scale effects that are available in this list now, that you can refuel Marath, keep making tokens, and keep sacrificing them with Skull Clamp. This is a huge draw engine for the list, and generally not the target of hate, because there are worse offenders on the field in the artifact and enchantment world that opponents save that removal for other things. My observation. Unless you're really going nuts with the Skull Clamp, then folks will remove it. Now, but generally speaking, no. Generally speaking, no. If you can mental misstep a Skull Clamp, then you just suck. Tutors. So the things you want to tutor for predominantly, things you want to tutor with rather, predominantly in this list. Ranger Captain of Eos. So I love this card. There's many reasons I love this card. I use it in every list I can because it has such a game-breaking effect attached to a tutor. So it's 1 generic double white for a creature, human, soldier, 3/3 body. Whenever Ranger Captain of Eos enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature with converted mana cost of 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So, okay, put it in your hand. Cool. Spent 3 mana for that. Sacrifice Ranger Captain of Eos. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. It's just as good as a silence to me. In most circumstances, most all circumstances, this is just as good as silence. So I will, let's just say I shared summons, that's in this list, and we'll talk about it in a second. I shared summons Heliod the Suncrowned and Ranger Captain of Eos. When I go to set up for my turn, I have one combo piece. Oh, Ranger Captain's gonna grab the other one. I'm gonna grab Walking Ballista. And whenever I like, I can go ahead and sacrifice Ranger Captain of Eos and make sure my Ballista lands and make sure I get the lifelink damage at the board combo going. I spoiled the latter half of the video. We're gonna talk about that later. But Ranger Captain, I just wanted to talk about the scenario where it's valuable. And you can do that with Cryptic Trilobite too. Excuse me, that's another combo card. Enjoy it. If you're really desperate though for ramp, like if there was a board wipe and you feel deficient with ramp, get your Jiraga Tree Speaker. That's 1 CMC. Ranger has so much playability and value in this list, it's just absurd. Now, another card I normally don't advocate for, Natural Order. This is a tutor that is very particular in its wording, but very good in this list. So for 2 generic, double green, sorcery speed, if only it were instant. As an additional cost to cast Natural Order, sacrifice a green creature. Marath's tokens are green. Check. Cool. Search it. Synergy, hand in hand, best friends. Search your library for a green creature card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. These are my favorite kinds of tutors. If I can throw it onto the battlefield, better. Always better. So, what green creatures? There are really only 3 that we want to get. But again, that meets my requirement for a tutor. So long as it's getting 2 things up here, but it's getting 3. Archon of Valor's Reach in this order. Archon of Valor's Reach, Orin Fang, Conclave Mentor. Those are the cards you're going to reach for every single time. No pun intended. Archon of Valor's Reach is so damn good. It's a reason to play Selesnya if you have effects that let you cheat it out, or you just have the ramp. You're in Selesnya. You have the ramp. Archon of Valor's Reach is so vital because it will shut down your opponents on your turn. If you just say the word instant. And in most cases will shut down the #1 strategy of many a list. If you see a list that contains blue and black, they're likely using Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pack. Well, guess what? They can't do that shit anymore. Secondly, they're not going to have the means to remove your stuff and or counter you when you're trying to go off on your turn. So Archon of Valor's Reach, huge plus in my book. One of my favorite cards in Magic the Gathering. There is not another Stacks or Hate Bear quite like this. The ability on this is just absurd. And of course you can name, I should probably read this off. As it enters the battlefield, you can name artifact, enchantment, instant, sorcery, or planeswalker. So there's a lot of options here. Players can cast spells of those chosen types. Now, the only unfortunate bit at 6 CMC is that Archon of Valor's Reach is also stopping you from casting said spells. So there is that downside, but on the upside, it's a flying, vigilance, trample, Frigilample, 5/6 body. What? That's what you want a Natural Order. We've talked about Orin Fang. That's obvious. That's like the other, it's like 50% of the time, 30, 20. Conclave Mentor, combo card, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, the last card I want to discuss is Shared Summons. Now, this is one I debated. I use it in Selvala Heart of the Wilds because we just have gobs of mana. It's very easy to pump this out and go for a win, right? Here, it's more like an ad nauseum, and not in the sense that you're getting a bunch of cards, but you're still getting optimum value from this. So for 5 CMC, 3 generic, double green, instant speed, search your library for up to 2 creature cards with different names, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Well, thank goodness Commander is 99 card singleton, because everything we grab is going to have a different name. There's some list that, I mean, you could, don't do something stupid. Don't grab 2 creatures with the same name, okay? However, what is the rat? What is the rat that, there's 2 rats that you can have many of them. At any rate, Shared Summons. What do you do with this? I already listed off one thing you'd want to tutor for, but let's just say you have Twin Flame in your hand. You have Twin Flame in your hand, and you know in your deck you have Dualcaster Mage and Grand Abolisher. Well, I really don't need to say anything else, right? You see what I'm getting at? See, you can connect the dots there. That's pretty good. Shared Summons is going to let you grab the rest of your combo line. Every single combo in this list, outside of Dualcaster Mage, is creature based. So Shared Summons lets you finish the puzzle with all of the missing pieces. So Marath is obviously the core part of the strategy here, and it's one of 3 pieces for a given combo in this deck. Shared Summons let you grab the other 2. And same thing, Heliod, Walking Ballista, just grab them. And then some of the other combos we're going to discuss momentarily. But those are the core ramp, draw, and tutors in this list. They're the ones I recommend you, in some instances, have on the play, right, with your starting hand, and or look for as you go along. Things like Archon of Valor's Reach in your hand, not so good. But if you have Natural Order, if you're able to, you have an Ancient Tomb, a Forest, and a Bird's Paradise with a Natural Order in your starting hand, damn, just go ahead, because most of the best tutors we have in this list are Sorcery Speed, right? The Finale of Devastation, I'm not going to say Sylvan Tutor is an amazing tutor, but a lot of our tutors are at Sorcery Speed. We do have Elodomri's Call, we do have Worldly Tutor in here, but it's not going to be the end of the world if we do an early Archon and say Instant, right? There are so many plays for all of these cards, but obviously we have much more beyond this in terms of ramp draw and tutoring. Those are just the core highlights I would want to entice you to play. The things that pair really well with Marath and what makes Marath so special. I really love the Combo King, and it was really sad when Marath got dethroned due to the companion mechanic being revised. I really enjoyed the fast approach of the infinite mana lines I had going for my previous build with Zerda. It still does have one infinite mana line, but it doesn't compare to the infinite mana lines we had with the previous build. That is, in an ideal world, what you'd want to do with Marath, but you don't need infinite mana anymore because there are just an absurd amount of cards printed at low CMC that work in tandem with Cryptic Trilobite. And the last one to have come out that we discussed in our Core Set 2021 review, Conclave Mentor, just cemented this list as like the best version of it. So let's discuss some combos with Marath. There are so many. So we know Marath should be on the screen, but we also know Cryptic Trilobite. So Cryptic Trilobite is XX for 0/0 body, creature Trilobite. Cryptic Trilobite enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters. So whatever you put into the X. So if you put 1 and 1, it comes in as a 1/1. Remove a +1 counter from Cryptic Trilobite, add 2 generic. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. And for 1 generic, tap, put a +1/+1 counter on Cryptic Trilobite. You're not really going to do that last one unless you play Cryptic out early, but that's generally not the game plan. Now, you can use this along with Marath and a Conclave Mentor to win the game. How do you do that, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. Conclave Mentor is green and white for a creature, centaur, cleric, 2/2 body. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters +1 are put on that creature instead. When Conclave Mentor dies, gain life equal to its power. This could be integral for a Heliod line, but that's not what we're looking at here. If you were to remove a +1/+1 counter from Cryptic Trilobite, you'll gain 2 generic. With that generic, you can go ahead and use Marath's ability twice to put a +1/+1 counter on it and the Cryptic Trilobite. Well, Trilobite is up 1 +1/+1 counter, and so is Marath. With this, you can net infinite activated mana, as well as infinite counters, as well as infinite activations off Marath Will of the Wild. Better yet, you have a redundancy of 4 of these effects. So outside of Conclave Mentor, we have Branching Evolution, which is 2 generic, 1 green enchantment. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters, you're going to notice a trend here, would be put on a creature you control. Twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. What? So Marath Will of the Wild, if you cast it for 3, it's a 6/6. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? Hardened Scales, same thing as Conclave Mentor. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. +1. That many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. That always trips me up when I say it. That's 1 green for an enchantment. So it's a little bit cheaper than Conclave Mentor. You want both. And the last one is Unbound Flourishing. And this does double duty in the list. It's the same cost as Branching Evolution at 2 generic and 1 green enchantment. Whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana cost that contains X, double the value of X. So this makes Cryptic Trilobite and Walking Ballista that much better on the cast. You don't have to put as much mana into it to get as much of an effect. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost or that activated ability cost contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So the second effect works on Marath's ability to put +1/+1 counters out, and this is effectively doubling the +1/+1 counters you're getting. Whew! I had to triple check how good Unbound Flourishing is, and it's good. So both effects you want. If Cryptic Trilobite's cast was X is 1, X is 1, you double those to 2 and 2. So it would come in as a 2/2. You have the combo that much easier now. It's nice. So you would pay 2 generic, 1 green, and then 5 total. If you have Maratha out, you just spent 5 CMC to win a game. That's pretty good in my book. It's not the most mana efficient combo in the world, but it's built on a list of redundant effects that just make your list absurd. So it's pretty good. Also, all of these elements help in casting any of our other play lines as well. There's layers to these combos that are included in this particular list that help the main line. So let's talk about those other combos now. I do want to state though, it's essential to use all of these. You might be tempted to remove Branching Evolution or remove Hardened Scales, but those redundant effects help you so much. Being able to buff Marath turn to turn and manipulate counters with your Generous Patron out, any of the elements we discussed earlier is very good. You want all of these effects. Plus, it means you get to save your creature tutors for grabbing something other than Conclave Mentor. So, trust me, you want all of these in the list. The next combo we're going to discuss is Heliod Suncrowned and Walking Ballista. As you can see where those redundancies come into effect here, because Walking Ballista, if it comes in with an additional +1/+1 counter, it makes the combo that much cheaper. So Heliod Suncrowned, in case you don't know, 2 generic, 1 white, legendary enchantment creature, god, indestructible as long as your devotion to white is less than 5. Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control, and for 1 generic, 1 white, another target creature gains lifelink until the end of turn. It's a 5/5 body. Pretty good on the swing if he's able. But Walking Ballista, XX, artifact creature, construct, 0/0 body. We all know the combo, but skip right to the important parts. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with +1/+1 counters on it, and remove a +1/+1 counter. It deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So it's infinite life gain, and the board is wiped at this point. You just slayed everyone. You didn't have to do infinite life necessarily. That was just a consequence of this combo line. So basically, what you want to do is cast Walking Ballista and make sure he's at least a 2/2 with 2 +1/+1 counters on him, and then give him lifelink with Heliod Suncrowned. It's all, just one self-enclosed combo. Now, generally, this combo costs 9 CMC, or if Heliod is already out, 6 CMC. But again, with those redundancies, if we just have a Hardened Scales out, this combo is only 4 mana, right? So we cast Walking Ballista for X is 1, so that's 2, and you give him lifelink. That's only 4. So much easier to set up now. And again, our starting hand's going to dictate. Like if we have a starting hand with Heliod the Suncrowned and an Unbound Flourishing, maybe we should just work towards getting Walking Ballista out, because we can win very easily that way. Yeah, so you get why they're there, right? I hope you do. The layers here work in our favor, and Heliod is just very easy to squeeze into this list. I have it on the consideration board because it's a thing you can do. But if you don't know, the Spike Feeder combo with Heliod isn't so bad either. So Spike Feeder should be on the screen now. It's one generic double green for a creature spike, 0/0 body. Spike Feeder comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay to remove a +1/+1 counter to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Never. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Spike Feeder, you gain 2 life. So again, if you gain life, you get to put a +1/+1 counter down. If I have Hardened Scales, I get to put 2 +1/+1 counters down. I have infinite life, and I have an army. Whatever I have on the battlefield, I can just give +1/+1 counters, an infinite number 2. It's cheeky, it's cute, it's not decisive. So Spike Feeder is something you can add to the list. That's a nice overlap with your main combo lines, but it's never something you're going to shoot for. However, it is something you can do. So, moving on. Layers here. Emil the Blessed and Dockside Extortionist. Emil, I really love this card. I was not for it initially, but with, I believe we have 9 ETBers that enter the battlefield and do things. And Emil's first ability is just so potent with those cards. So we talked about this in our set review, but 2 generic double white, legendary creature, unicorn, 4/4 body. For 3 generic, exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay Selesnya, so green or white. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, put 2 +1/+1. It's not going to happen. So what's important here is that you can offer protection to your creatures. You can abuse ETB effects, right? So your Stoneforge Mystic, it got a Skull Clamp earlier. Now you can get the Conqueror's Flail and start doing the thing you want to do on your turn. Or you can just bounce your Imperial Recruiter and grab your Dockside Extortionist, because with this, you make infinite mana, right? So long as you're making 4 treasures, you can use Emil's ability to do this repeatedly with Dockside Extortionist. Bounce it, come into play, make a treasure, and you're up a treasure every single time you do this, right? So with that, you can use Marath an infinite number of times. Cast Marath, shoot off all the counters, cast Marath, shoot off all the counters. You get the idea. The other little bit of layering here is that if you're trying to go for a different combo line, right, you have the Hardened Scales out, you have Marath out, and you have Cryptic Trilobite in your hand, the setup for this combo is much less, because again, I can cast Cryptic Trilobite for X1, so 2 CMC, and use Emil's ability to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it will be a 2/2 body, ready to remove a +1/+1 counter and gain 2 generic mana for activated abilities, getting the ball rolling on our Marath line of play. So Emil has multiple layers in the list. It is definitely better than having Tamir Sabertooth, which is something a lot of older lists have done, myself included. This is the upgrade to this list. Anything that gives +1/+1 counters is relevant to this list. Even in like a small incremental way like this, it's relevant and it should be considered just on face value for that alone. But the bounce effect and the fact it's a 4/4 beater, also just really nice, and that it combos with one of our other cards. So that's not all that's in this list. You might have noticed that there is one of my favorite combos in Magic situated in this list, and it's built around some of my favorite value cards. So we have Dualcaster Mage, Heat Shimmer, and Twin Flame. Dualcaster Mage is 1 generic double red for a creature human wizard, 2/2 body. Flash, whenever Dualcaster Mage enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. They don't need to be spells you control, so the benefit here is you can copy a tutor, you can copy any effect you'd like. So it's a good means of protection sometimes too. Heat Shimmer and Twin Flame essentially read the same way. Heat Shimmer is 2 generic and 1 red for a sorcery speed spell. Put a token into play that's a copy of target creature. It has haste, and at the end of turn, remove this permanent from the game. Same idea with Twin Flame, 1 generic, 1 red for a sorcery speed spell. It has Strive. You can, Twin Flame's cost is 2 and 1 red more to cast for each target beyond the first. So you have multiple targets here. It's almost like multi-kicker. Choose any number of target creatures you control. For each of them, put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield. Those tokens have haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Now, if you don't know the age-old combo, you'll go ahead and cast Twin Flame, targeting Marath. Whatever at this point, right? Twin Flame targeting Marath. You're going to go ahead and cast Dualcaster Mage at this point. It'll ETB, copy Twin Flame copies Dualcaster Mage. We're making Dualcaster Mages. All the damage. All these Dualcaster Mages. This combo only works if you do it on your pre-combat main phase, right? And you're able to attack. I don't know, there might be something stopping you, like a prison, something. No one uses the cards that make you pay mana to attack. Not generally in cEDH. Maybe we should, though. Nagilas are pretty rampant. Nagila is a pain in the ass. But Dualcaster Mage, it's very good. It's very good by itself. It's very good in combo. I only don't include this, at least in the written primer, as one of 4 combos, technically, because it's not something we're aiming for. It's nothing of this combo is immediately tutorable aside from Dualcaster Mage. So I would never suggest you go for this unless you have Twin Flame in your hand, unless you have Heat Shimmer in your hand, or you've cast it previously and you have Noxious Revival in your hand. Something to retrieve one of those spells back. Because you're normally going to use Heat Shimmer or Twin Flame for value. Again, recurring those ETBers, making those things happen again. In the sense of Heat Shimmer, you can do more with that because you can steal things from your opponents as well. So there's obviously better value there. And Dualcaster Mage is just going to be a means of tutoring and or protection on any given turn. One of my favorite cards for value, these are cards I use in Wart the Raid Mother, and I learned a lot from playing that list and developing that list. Cards like these are just highly valuable, especially when you have 28 creatures to manipulate with the copy creature effect and a board of players to manipulate with Dualcaster Mage. I'm filming this on the morning of 4th of July, in case you're wondering. There was just a group of bikers, I don't know if you can still hear them, that just ran by the building. But that's it. Perfect timing. Those are the main combos for this list. And all of the cards that you should be looking for the essential package, the better Marath package. This list is, I want to say, almost at its zenith, but it will only get better as more cards are developed for this that push it further. But Naya is very strong, very potent now because it already had a lot of creature tutors, and now they're all very relevant to a combo play line, a strategy that works so well with this commander. Conclave Meta really pushed this one over the edge for me, and I'm just so excited to see Marath in this place. It's extremely volatile in this list, this build, and I highly encourage you to try it out. And again, guys, those of you who followed me for the Zerta build, I hate that the list sort of wavered after the rules changed, but you couldn't have expected that, and it sucks that it happens. But I think that this is definitely the route to go now if you're still looking to play Marath. Marath is an absurd commander. There's no reason that it should be so obscure in your playgroup, that it's not seen as often because it's so damned potent. I don't know why it's not as favored or brewed for, but this may be my 7th attempt at Marath to try to build a better version, and I don't even think I've perfected it yet because there's just so many strategies involved with the manipulation of counters and obviously the kind of effects we have in Naya that there's much more to unravel here. So I leave it to you to take this list and do with it what you will. Obviously develop and build around the bones I've laid out for you, but this, in my opinion, is a better version. But gang, if you want to complete your Marath Will of the Wild list with those few cards you are missing, I highly encourage you to do so through the link in the description at TCG Player. Not only do they have the best prices year round, they also do have seasonal kickbacks, and do know that a portion of those proceeds will go to help the channel. So thank you for helping support the show, for the deck techs, the reviews, and all the whatnot. But gang, if you want to help support the channel directly, you can do so via Anchor and or Patreon. And this is that fun part of the video where I thank you guys personally for all your contributions. There's a new Patreon member I haven't thanked personally yet. Do expect a message from me on the Patreon, but oh my gosh, so many. First and foremost, thank you guys for supporting us in our infancy. This channel is roughly a year old at this point. We're going strong. I'm trying to do at least weekly videos, if you've noticed. I would love to produce more, but the show doesn't make enough for me to spare that much time, unfortunately. So all the time I can goes into developing the decks off camera, developing the scripts off camera, and getting this stuff ready for you. But there's so much more I want to do with this channel for you guys, and you all are really helping me accomplish those goals. So thank you so much. Just a big blanket thank you to all the Patreon members, but Ave, John, Just Me, thank you for your support. Rory, Brian, Mikey Boy, gosh, if I knew the chords, I would beckon you to my calling. Trevor, Landers, Paul, thank you guys so much for your patronage. Emil, this is the reason he feels blessed. You guys. Corwin, Schmambi, Tenenbaum, Tim, thank you guys so much for your patronage. Please support me with those +1/+1 counters. Adrian, Carlos, Kevin, thank you guys so much for your patronage. You are the best. Sir Fluffykins, Matthew, Kay, and Kevin, thank you so much for your patronage. You guys really do help out the channel. Submox1 or Submoxen, Adam, and Dante, thank you guys for your support. You are the dual caster to my every list. We have Sarah, Joshua, Renell, Trent, and Gregory. Heliod Suncrown, Walking Ballista combo, if I ever saw them. That's true. That might not jive with you. Do you guys like mono white? No one does. It's rare to find the person that likes mono white. It's just me. I think it's just me. Harry, I think I said Gregory. We're gonna do it again. Gregory, Harry, Dave, fighting a sneeze. Thank you so much for your patronage. You guys are the best. Leonardo. Oh my God, it's going to attack me again. Leonardo, Christopher, Carl, Craig, Mason. Thank you guys for your patronage. Paul, Jake, Frankly, Gulius, Shaofan, Bruno, Jason, Kev T. The best. The best. You are what makes Marath better. Trust me. You. Personally. Allie, love you. Burden, Josh, Clyde, some of the best Patreon members of any Patreon page, by the way. Shaded, Frank, Jarn, Jared, Brendan, thank you guys for your patronage. Are you amongst the few Marath players out there? Otherwise, you're probably not watching this video, but I hope you watch it anyways. We have the view to subscriber ratio is sometimes imbalanced. Sometimes we get way more views than subscribers. So I have to believe you're amongst the viewership. I hope. Short, Nathan, Javier. How about them +1/+1 counters? Does Marath excite you at all? Is it just me? Mono White and Marath, is it just me? Oliver, the Holy Knight, Sam, Running Red, Jordan, Nick, Luke, Leon, and Mace. Thank you guys for your patronage. Again, you all are the best fans of this show. I mean that, and I truly mean it. Every time I say it, I wouldn't be announcing your names otherwise. Trust me. It's baffling, especially in these times, to find support from relative strangers. And I'm happy to build relationships with you guys over on the Discord and on the Patreon. It's just so wonderful to know that there is a support group out there for weird content creators like me. So thank you guys so much for your help. I really do appreciate it. And I do hope you enjoyed this Marath list. Do try something new for a change if you want to break away from the top tier, from what is making this meta incredibly powerful. Try something new. Maybe you'll enjoy it. I really enjoy it. Play Archon of Valor's Reach once and you'll know what I'm talking about. Play Orin Frostfang once and you'll know what I'm talking about. But guys, my name is Patrick Marlette. I hope you enjoyed this brew, and happy brewing, babies.